Welcome along as we take another walk down memory lane. For the next half an hour or so, we will be reminiscing about the 1995-1996 campaign, and the man in the box opposite me was named Footballer of the Year that season. Delighted that Les Ferdinand could spare us some time today, or as he's still known on Tyneside, Sir Les Ferdinand.
Afternoon, and how are you?
I'm brilliant. How are you, Les? How's life at the minute? How are you coping?
Yeah, it's been tough. I mean, for me in the position I'm in now as director of football at Queen's Park Rangers, I can kind of like work remotely from home. I'm still getting sent loads of players, although we're yet to see what the financial impact this has on football clubs to whether we're going to be buying or selling players when we do eventually finish the season. But yeah, no, it's been tough for everybody, not just football, but the whole world.
Well, let's try and put a smile on a few faces, particularly those of black and white persuasion. Then let's go back to the summer of 1995. How long did you know that you were going to Newcastle? How early was this move in the pipeline?
I think come the end of the previous season, and I'd had a pretty good season at QPR. I think I'd scored 26 goals in all competitions in my final year at QPR. And myself and Ray Wilkins, who was the then manager, we'd gone to end of season tour to Barbados and the Caribbean, and I always remember sitting with him having a drink, and we both said that we'd have a chat come the end of the season as to where we were and what we felt, and we kind of both felt I'd got to that stage where I perhaps needed to move on. So it was probably decided in my head, probably the second half of the season, that come the start of the next season I'd be playing football somewhere else. But I continued to give my best and do my best for QPR, and then come the end of the season, the offers started to come in, and it was really funny because while we was on that tour of Barbados, Aston Villa were out there, and they had just played in Trinidad and Tobago, and they'd come to play the team that we'd played in Barbados. And I always remember standing with Doug Ellis, and Doug Ellis said to me at the time, he said, "We got first option on you." And I said, "What does that mean, Doug?" He said, "Well, I've spoken to Richard Thompson, and he said, we can speak to you." I said, "Well, I suppose if you bid the money and they accept it, then you can speak to me." So he said, "Yeah, we'll be one of the first clubs that you talk to come the end of the season." I was like, I kind of laughed it off at the time because, the sun was shining, spirits were high. Yeah, so I sort of like shrugged it off. And but come the end of the season, they were the first team to bid the $6 million.
And it was well known, certainly on Tyneside, that Kevin Keegan liked you. I think he certainly made inquiries when Newcastle first got promoted. And then when Andy Cole left Newcastle for Manchester United, there seemed to be a general groundswell of feeling that you would be the natural successor. How soon did you know that Kevin was interested, and what did he say to you?
I think he'd been pretty complimentary about a couple of games I'd played against him while I'd been at QPR, and in particular, QPR won for the first time up at Tyneside, and we won 2-1 in the game up there. And I always remember coming off the pitch at the time and saying to the players in the change room, "Can you imagine playing in front of that week in, week out?" I thought that the fans were absolutely unbelievable on the day, and I always look at Newcastle fans a little bit like you look at the Liverpool fans, that if a team plays against them and they play really well, they'll actually clap them off the pitch. They kind of understand football, and they on the day I remember them clapping the QPR team off the pitch, as well as clapping the Newcastle team who just lost. And that was the reason why I went in and said, "Can you imagine playing in front of these week in, week out?" And then it was kind of like documented that Keegan was an admirer. And when I got there, it was a few of the players like Lee Clark and Steve Watson said, "After you'd played up here, we got called in on the Sunday and made to watch the game again." And it was mainly for the defenders because I'd had a particularly good game on the day, and said, "Look, this is what happened to you," and blah, blah, blah. And he said, "You made us all come in the next day because of the way you played." So, that was funny. And then, come the end of the season, Keegan made contact with my agent at the time and said, "Look, we'd really love, I know he's Aston Villa bid, we want to bid, and we'd like the opportunity to speak to him." So this was probably the second week after the season was finished. So I met with Kevin down in London, in a hotel just outside of London, and we had a conversation. I was sold within 5 minutes. I'd spent about 2 hours with Doug Ellis in his office at Aston Villa. There was no one there, and we'd gone through this, that, and the other. And without being, I'm not being disrespectful to Aston Villa in any way, shape, or form. But at the end of that current season, I think QPR had finished above them in the league. And for me to have gone to Aston Villa at that time would have been more of a sideways step for me than a step upwards. And that's how I felt at the time. And as much as I was flattered by the offer from Villa, once I sat down and spoke to Kevin Keegan, I thought if there was anyone I was going to learn from, if there was anyone that was going to better my career, the way that Newcastle played at the time, and learning from someone who's been the best striker in this country in his time playing football, I thought the combination was right for me.
So talk me through the dressing room then when you first arrived up at St James's Park. Who was the squad? Who was the first 11 at that point?
When I got there, I think in '95, that season, I think, the club was going through a real transition in terms of, when I say real transition, they brought quite a few players in. They brought Shaka Hislop, they brought Warren Barton, they brought David Ginola, brought myself in. So, to bring like 4 or 5 additions to the club at any one time is quite big in the summer for any team. And guys that they brought in that they wouldn't recognise as first team players as well. Sometimes you bring a player in that might be a squad player, but at the time, you bring these guys in to be first-team players. So, there was a bit of a turnaround. And obviously, there's going to be a little bit of disgruntlement because there's some players that are going to be in the dressing room that realise that are they coming to the end of their time at the club. And, Newcastle have been on a magnificent sort of like rise from the Championship into the Premier League, and we're still rising. So, those guys had been part of that. So all of a sudden, there was other people that were coming through the door. And I didn't really face that problem because, their big money signing in Andy Cole had left and gone to Man United. So I was filling a void, if you like.
When you look at that team now and you're thinking, so yeah, you could choose between Pav and Xhaka in goal, Beres and Barton fullbacks, Philippe Albert, Peacock, Howie the centre-backs. What midfield? Rob Lee Clark, Ginola, Gillespie, you, Beardsley up top. Later on, Batty and Esprit join. It's no wonder people say it was one of the best teams never to win the league.
Yeah, Robbie Elliott as well. There was quite a few players that probably, there was Dave Kitson there who had been there for a few years. I'm just trying to think of all the names now that had already been there and was playing. Scott Sellers was there. When I joined, so there was some quality footballers that were at the club, and people were vying for places. And I think any club where you're going to be successful, that's always the case. You've always got people that want to take your place, and you say you have to stay on top of your game. So yeah, we had a real good squad of players that I was excited about getting to grips with.
And it started off really well. Pre-season, you were flying. Then first game of the season, your debut, Coventry, 3-0. You got the third. That must have felt good.
Yeah, it was, there's lots to talk. And I knew what the Newcastle number 9 meant to Geordie supporters and what it meant to the Newcastle United team and the fans and everything else. But it probably wasn't until I scored that goal that I actually really realised, because at that moment of me scoring the goal, the whole stadium erupted. I didn't have a particularly good game. I really wanted to play well, and I was very confident leaving QPR going to Newcastle. It didn't matter where I went to. I felt I was going to go and I was going to play good football. But when that goal went in, I kind of like realised the enormity of what it meant to the supporters. And as much as I said I knew about what the number 9 meant and playing for Newcastle meant, when I scored that goal, I can't realise, because the whole place erupted. The roof nearly come off the place in terms of their number 9 has scored on the opening day of the season, and then that was it for me,
It was 4 in the first 4, so you genuinely had hit the ground running. How important was that just to get a bit of momentum behind you and the team?
I think for I was, in terms of scoring goals, first and foremost, I think my record's quite good on the opening day of the season. I did tend to score on the opening day of the season, and obviously doing that, we led into Bolton on the Tuesday or Wednesday night, I think it was. And I remember going there and scoring 2 goals, and then again at the weekend, and then that's the kind of momentum as a centre forward you want to get into, no matter where you are, where you've gone, what you're doing as a centre forward. Early part of the season, you want to be scoring goals, and it couldn't have started any better for me as Newcastle. I was playing with a group of players that I knew, game in, game out, were going to create chances for me.
As a slight aside, what do you feel, or what would you say to Joe Linton, the current holder of the number 9 shirt, because he didn't get off to a goal-scoring start? What does he have to do now to try and turn things around?
I mean, I kind of knew Joe Linton before he went to Newcastle, so part of my job was to look at players around the world. And although we couldn't afford him, certain players come to light. And I'd done some stuff with Hoffenheim, and I knew their director of football quite well, and had spoken to him, and I'd seen Joe Linton play on a few occasions. The problem he's got, I say problem he's got. No, the difference between him, I don't see him as a traditional number 9. When I've seen him play his best football, he's one of what I call the modern day centre forwards who could play left, right, and through the centre. He actually prefers playing left and right than he does playing through the centre. But when you've got someone of his ilk and his stature and his size, everybody expects him to be that number 9 in a traditional sense of what a number 9 used to be like at Newcastle United. So, I don't know if that will change for him. In him learning that position, but to be a number 9 in the way that they want him to be a number 9, he needs to learn that position. I'm not quite sure that's how he wants to play.
Time will tell. So let's go back to 95. So 13 goals for you in the first 10 games, and it was a double against 2 against Chelsea, 2 against City, and a goal against Everton away at Goodison, which you always see on all the highlight reels. What were they? How do you remember that in those first 10 games? Because it just seemed like you were scoring for fun.
Yeah, it was a bit of a blur, really. You sit in the changing rooms before a game and without trying to sound arrogant, without trying to sound flash, you just sit there thinking, I'll score today. But that was just the I mean, with the team I was playing in, you look around and any centre forward will tell you you're only as good as the people that are around you. And I kept looking at the boys around, and I was getting chances from Peter Beardsley, I was getting chances from David Ginola, Keith Gillespie, Rob Lee, and I just, it was just, I knew, put yourself in a position. I used to say to them, never look for me in the box, just cross the ball and I'll get on the end of it. And with David Ginola one side and Keith Gillespie the other, the balls just kept raining in, and I just had to put myself in positions, and that's what I managed to do.
Was there any specific date when you thought, we are really in this title race, we could win it?
Yeah, I think that early part of the season, when we started to, we were fearless, and as well we had the rub of the green in some of the games, and that happens in football. Decisions go your way. Little things that could have gone bounce left, bounce right, into someone's path, and we had that rub of the green in the early part of the season. I remember going to Goodison Park, the goal you talk about, it says it's always shown on highlight reels, and Kevin Keegan pulled me up to the front of the coach, and he said to me, when I used to come and watch you at QPR, you'd pick the ball up on the halfway line or just after the halfway line, and you'd run with it, and you'd beat a few people and you'd score. Why don't you do that anymore? And I went, well, because when I pick the ball up now, I feel like I've got 3, 4, 5 options, and if I choose that option and I lose it, then the 3 or 4 good options that I had, I've wasted. So he went, I get where you're coming from, but I'd still like you to do it. I'd still like you to do it. And he said, perhaps not today, because we never win here at Everton. For some reason, Everton had been sort of like Newcastle's bogey team, and I went, well, I think we'll win today because I don't really lose against Everton. I said, for whatever reason, I have a real good record against Everton. And I said, if I scored 2 goals in the season, it'd be 1 at home and 1 away against Everton. And they started laughing. And then I picked the ball up on the halfway line and turned and ran and scored the goal. And I looked at the bench and he went like that, So, yeah, that's one goal that always sticks out in my mind because of the conversation we had before it.
It was such a good start. I wonder, to me, the day when I certainly watching thought that you had a real shot at winning the league was when you beat Liverpool at St James's Park in about mid-November, and it was you and Steve Watson got the winner really late.
Yeah, I think on the day, if you saw that game, Liverpool perhaps gave us a footballing lesson. I thought they were fantastic on the day. We were off our mental. We weren't playing our free-flowing football as well as we had done in previous games. but we managed to get the goals. I got one early goals, and I remember it sliding in and coming off, hitting one leg and coming off the knee and going in the back of the net. And then, as you said, Rob Lee had a shot. David James spilt it, and Steve Watson went in. But I remember Liverpool playing really well on the day, gave us a real good run for our money, which you expected. And you probably looked at that at the time and thought, these are the type of games we need to win. And if we're winning those type of games, then that gives us a real good chance of winning this league. And leading up to Christmas, I think we were all thinking, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Peter Beardsley had done some calculations. And if we'd kept winning in the manner that we were winning, we would have had the league wrapped up by March.
You could see why you would think that, because it's St James's Park. You were dominant, I think 17 wins that season at home. And when you beat Bolton in January, that was the day when you were 12 points clear. And you certainly went from contenders to this is the year.
Yeah, and we felt that, we again, looking around at the team, we was confident in everybody. Everyone was on a high because we were playing that well. The whole, I wouldn't even say the stadium, the whole area of Newcastle was on a high, and we were just riding the crest of that wave at the time because everybody was, everyone was believing. And I always remember going home back to London. Keegan said he'd go back for a couple of days, and I went back for a couple. It was over the Christmas period. It wasn't. It was actually going into the new year, and we had a little bit of a lapse. And I went home for a couple of days, and I came back. And I always remember I came back and I came straight to Maiden Castle. And as I drove into the training ground, there was a fella, and he had a shirt on, and it had Champions 95, 96 on the back. And I went, oh no, I didn't need to see that. We're celebrating this a little bit too early, and we need to. And I was thinking, I hope the lads don't see that, because we need to knuckle down and let's not think that we've won this. We need to. There's plenty of games to go, and there were just little omens that probably crept in that you saw and you didn't really want to see because it could sidetrack you.
What did you think when Keegan brought in Faustino Asprilla and David Batty?
I think both of them were quality players. I always remember we played someone, and then we had to go and play. I think we played Arsenal in the cup, and we stayed in Bournemouth. We didn't go back to Newcastle because we were playing them on the Tuesday night, and so we stayed in Bournemouth for a couple of days. And I remember we played Arsenal. We didn't play particularly well. We got beat, and I remember Kevin Keegan coming into this. I went to the showers after he'd spoken. He'd had a bit of a go at the players for the way we performed. And then I went to the showers. And as I walked to the shower, he came to the shower and he said to me, "I know what's happened there." And I went, "What's that? What's that?" He said, "We've become too reliant on you getting us a goal, and it's too much. We're putting too much pressure on you. I'm going to get someone to help you." And I went, "Okay." And then he he walked off. And then the next week, there was reports of Asprilla. And I don't know if you remember, Andy, Asprilla was due to come over, and then it looked like the deal was done. It wasn't going to happen. And then it went away, and then a couple of weeks later, it was back on again. And the next thing you know, he was on Tyneside. We were going to the Middlesbrough game, and he turned up and he signed, and he was on the bench for the Middlesbrough game. And then I remember him coming off the bench. We ended up winning that game 2-1. We was losing 1-0. He came off the bench, did a bit of magic, made a goal for Steve Watson, and then I scored the winner. And then after that, we was like, I can see why Keegan needs to get him in the side. I mean, it was like, he's so talented. Do you know what I mean? You looked at him and you thought he's going to benefit any team that he plays for. And so we looked at him. We thought good, solid signings for us, and we were hoping that they were going to help our situation.
I suppose it's really easy from the outside to say everything was going so well, 12 points clear, like 2 defeats all season till that point. Then you sign 2 new players. Then you go on this run where I think it was 2 wins in 8. The one that always stands out was Manchester United, Monday night, St James's Park. I think at that point you'd won 13 out of 13, and it was basically it was you v Peter Schmeichel for the first 45 minutes. Just could not score. He was incredible that night.
Yeah, I mean, you look back on it and you think, earlier on in the season, everything I hit was going in the back of the net, and on that night, everything I hit seemed to hit Peter Schmeichel or go over the bar. I wasn't alone. There was a few others that had good efforts. I think Philip Albert hit the crossbar, come down, bounced out. And, I put the rebound over the bar. It was, it was just one of those nights. And, I remember speaking to Peter after, and he said, half of them I didn't even know about. Just stuck my legs out, stuck my hands out, and they hit me, And that sometimes happens. And we, on the night, I thought for the first 45 minutes, we played some incredible stuff. And okay, the result didn't go our way, but in terms of a match for Man United, I think everybody looked at us and thought these are worthy title contenders.
Yeah, he had one shot the entire game. Cantona gets the goal. There was a couple of things then in that next little run which must have been so painful. That the Liverpool one always gets talked about, maybe the most famous game in Premier League history. What was it like to play in?
It's always a weird one, because I remember sort of like halfway through the game. I said halfway through the game. Halfway through the second half of the game, someone went down injured and trainer came on. And I always remember going over and, they have the water bottles and picking up the water bottle and having a drink. And I was thinking to myself, whoever's watching this game tonight is watching one hell of a game of football, because it was end to end. It was end to end. There was no, both defences were on the rack the whole game. And unfortunately, again, I thought we played some really good stuff. They played some good stuff. But in the end, they got the result. And I remember going in after the game, and sometimes you go in and a manager goes, you say, look, we scored 3 goals away from home. You'd expect to win the game. But I said, how can I have a go at anyone today after watching a display like that? Keegan said, I'm lost for words. I don't even know what to say to you, because that's the type of football I want my teams to play. Unfortunately, you come out on the wrong end of a result. And I think when I think back, people talk about the Man United game and stuff like that. That particular game there, I think there's momentum for a season. And I think if we'd have won that game there, that would have bolstered us to go on and win the league.
Because you had that one, and then I think less than a week later, I think it was maybe beat QPR in the middle. You go to Blackburn, you're 1-up with 5 minutes to play, and then Graham Fenton, of all people, Newcastle fan, no one really knew much about him, young player, goes twice in the last 4 minutes.
Yeah, and that was that's just where we are. I think David Batty scored in that Blackburn game, didn't it? It was his first goal, and I remember him scoring, and then again we looked in control, and then like you said, Graham Fenton from nowhere pops up and scores 2 goals, and we just think, maybe this ain't meant to be. I think it was probably that game, because you say QPR in between. I thought Blackburn was the next game after Liverpool, and we ended up losing that as well. But you could be right. You could be right. I mean, it's there's so many games it becomes a bit of a blur. But I thought the Blackburn game stands out because we went there and lost, and when earlier on in the season we would have just blown them away. And I suppose it was at that point we probably started to disbelieve ourselves.
Were you having a personal dip at that point? I think it was 21 goals in the first 25, and then your rate of goals slipped off a little bit as well. You scored against Liverpool in the 4-3, but did you just drop a little bit?
Yeah, I think if you looked at, I mean, they reran the game the other night, and one of my mates, Chris Ramsey, who's one of the coaches at QPR with me, turned around and said to me, "You was playing right back, you was playing right wing, you was playing," and I said, "Yeah, well, because what happened was we didn't have a right winger anymore. Keith Gillespie played that role, and obviously Asprilla came into the side. Peter Beardsley was made to go out there, but Pete was never going to play out there. He was going to come inside, and so that left that area vulnerable. So it was either myself or Asprilla who had to do the work to get back into that position. So whereas early on in the season we were playing, we were devoted to two wide men crossing balls, and like I said, Peter and Rob Lee coming through the middle. We kind of changed our way of playing a little bit, and meant that I had to vacate the centre forward position to be elsewhere. And I had a dip in form, and I think Rob Lee was scoring goals quite regularly as well, and I think they said that he hadn't scored a goal since December. When I was listening to the piece the other day, and I've often said this, too many of us lost form at the wrong time, and there was
Is that
dip
because
in
of the
form
change?
from.
Do you
Sorry.
you think you'd have been better off if you hadn't changed it? If Asprilla hadn't come in, Batty hadn't come in, just stayed with that rigid 4-4-2?
That's hindsight now. I think we were all quite maverick in the way that we played, and to blame David Batty and Asprilla would be wrong. I think what happened was we from the day one we were all our tactics were you'll score one but we'll score two. You'll score two, we'll score three. And then I think in history, any team that wins the Premier League at some stage, you need to win a game 1-0. And we probably didn't have that in our locker. I used to see people when I used to come back to London. I'd be on a train or I'd be on a flight or whatever, and people used to stop me and say, "I'm not a Newcastle United fan, but let me tell you something now. If they're on the box, I guarantee you I'm watching because I know there's going to be goals." And we were probably at the time everybody's second favourite team. If they supported another team, the team that they supported after that was Newcastle, just because of the way we play football and the brand of football that we played. But that meant we were vulnerable. I feel sorry for our centre backs and our full backs now because we were so maverick. We just pushed everyone forward because we was always trying to score goals.
Ironically, just towards the end of the season, and you got on a little run. You got 3 back-to-back 1-0s, culminating in the win at Leeds. I think it was on a Monday night, but that was the night Kevin Keegan gave the famous "I would love it" interview. What did the players think there? Did you think is that the sort of thing you needed to hear, or did you think he was starting to let Sir Alex win the mental battle?
No, we kind of we always knew Kevin was the type of manager that wore his heart on his sleeve, and as punters, as supporters, or whoever you are, you always want that from your players. You want to see that players are wearing their hearts on their sleeve for that team, and Kevin Keegan did that for Newcastle United. Unfortunately, when he did it, obviously it became the words he used and the way he did it was everyone was mimicking him, but I don't think there was a player in the changing room that felt he'd lost it. We were quite made up with it. Do you know what I mean? We was thinking, yeah, we're still in this and we're going to battle because, obviously with the stuff that Alex Ferguson was saying, and Alex Ferguson was the master of mind games, but we didn't see it as him getting the better of Kevin Keegan. It just had Kevin Keegan showing his passion and how desperate he was for us to win the league.
In the end, of course, he finished with 2 draws, Forest and then Spurs at home. And the last game was a bit of a damp squib because it was pretty much gone. But looking back, you 25 goals, runners-up in the Premier League, and Footballer of the Year. Your first season on Tyneside couldn't have gone too much better.
No, could have gone a little bit better if we won the league. But from a personal point of view, in terms of scoring goals. I think it was 29 in all competitions in the end. It was my best goal scoring season in my career in terms of that. And I know the PFA. Yeah, of course, it's an accolade for scoring goals and doing what I did. I think, as I said, when the voting's done earlier in the year, and it's not kind of like at the end of the season, but then you have to take into account the season before that. And so if you're saying right, it's not over a full season, it's part of the season before that. The season before that, like I said, I'd scored 26 goals at QPR and had probably my best year at QPR. So I'd kind of just followed that year into a very good year at Newcastle. The only thing that was missing, and I think there's no better accolade than being voted by your peers as their player of the year. But I'd certainly have given that up to see the rest of the team and myself lift the Premier League title.
Yeah, it was a sensational year. Was there any part of you? Did you think you got better that summer, or was it something next season?
I think I played with better players, and again, without being disrespectful to the QPR players, when I left QPR, I went and I knew I was going to play with a better group of players. Who had aspirations of trying to win the league. At QPR, we were perhaps going to go on a really good cup run. We were never going to be contenders for the Premier League. We were just going to be a good mid to top half table. Some seasons we were going to flirt with relegations, but on the whole, we were going to be a mid to top 10 Premier League side. At Newcastle, I felt it was going, and I said I was only going to leave QPR if I felt I could go and better myself. And going to Newcastle is exactly what I did, and that was because of the players that were around me rather than. And I suppose I did improve as a player, but I think it was more the players that were around me that improved me.
Was the second season at Newcastle, was that a better team again, or was there something missing from that previous year when you'd gone so close?
Yeah, I think there was a hangover from that previous year, although we'd signed Alan in the summer, and that was a major signing for us. Obviously, Alan coming in and being the quality player that he is, his influence around the place, as well as his ability to play football, was a major coup for us to get him. But there was something missing from the fact that we should have, we felt there was a lot of the boys in there that felt we should have won the league the year before, and we kind of finished runners up again that year without perhaps having the prowess and the level of performance that we had in the year before.
There was some great nights, weren't there? The 5-0 against Manchester United. That was at mid-October, and you thought, right, actually, maybe this is the year.
Yeah, no, I mean, even then, I still didn't think we'd played well enough throughout the season. That 5-0 was just testament to the fact that they'd beaten us 1-0 at home the year before. The fact that they'd humiliated us in the Charity Shield at the start of the season. And I always remember Kevin Keegan's team talk, and the team talk was just simply, "You owe those fans out there," and he walked out. And to a man in the dressing room, we all realised that, we all knew that. And the crazy thing is, we probably played better in the first game, and
when you lost 1-0
in the back of the net. Yeah, that we lost 1-0, and then in the second game, obviously, everything we hit seemed to go in the back of the net, and it was just so ironic that we probably didn't play as well as we did in the second game, but everything we hit on target went in. So yeah, I mean, it was a little bit of a consolation for the sort of supporters, but I sit here now and it doesn't really, although it was a great game and a great result in the end, it doesn't sort of like rectify the season before that.
Where did Sir Les come from then? When did you get that nickname?
I mean, it started at QPR. When I first when I really got into the side and started playing well. It came about then. Followed me to Beşiktaş in Turkey. They used to call me that out there. And then it's a nickname that has stuck with me throughout my career. And I've been called a lot worse when I've turned up at grounds in the past. But it's one of the nicknames that it's nice to have.
I mean, only 2 years at Newcastle, but there was such genuine affection for you there. Looking back with hindsight, if there was one regret, did you go too soon?
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. And I've often said it. Some footballers talk about their careers and said they say they have no regrets. Probably my pride took me away from St James's Park rather than my. I should have stayed because I think it would have been the best thing for my footballing career. But my pride got in the way of the way I'd been treated, and caused me to move back down south to Tottenham. Although I was a Tottenham supporter as a boy, and to have that dream of playing for the team that you supported as a boy, the pull was strong there. But in terms of, I knew I was going to a team that was in the process of trying to rebuild itself, and having spoken to Alan Sugar and his ideas of what he wanted to do at the football club, persuaded me to go. A lot of the decision I made was based on pride rather than the best thing for my footballing career.
Well, probably there was like 3 into 2 almost. You, Tino, Alan Shearer, all vying for 2 or 1 spots on occasions.
Yeah, it was a little bit like that, and I kind of like I'd spoken to Doug Leach, and he said, "Look, I want to keep you, but there's going to be times where I only play with one up front, and that's going to be, that'd be Alan." And I was going, what you're saying is, doesn't matter how well I'm playing and how badly Alan's playing. If you're playing one up front, it's going to be Alan. And he said, "Yeah," and I said, "Well, that's not really good enough for me. Do you know what I mean? I'm a footballer. I want to play, and if I'm playing well, I ain't sitting on the bench." And I know. Yeah, I say that now. When you look at football now, and it's all about rotation, and you play one game, this one plays one game. But we were all from the same kind of like mindful, and as a centre forward, if you're playing and you're scoring goals, don't put me on the bench. That's not where I want to. That's not where I want to be. And we were all of them at the same mindset. I think all the centre forwards in that era would have been on the same mindset. I'm playing, and if I'm playing well, I need to be out on that pitch. Don't put me on the bench.
It was an amazing time.
Yeah, listen. People say to me, what was the most enjoyable time in your career? And I had some unbelievably fantastic times at QPR. I had a great bunch of players that I played with, and they gave me the platform to do what I did and go on to Newcastle. But probably Newcastle was the best period in my career, just because we simply had a team that could challenge not only for the Premier League but for cups. And in hindsight, I left the year I left. They got to the FA Cup final on 2 occasions. And so it just goes to show I left a little bit too early. The affection from supporters. When I speak to people now, even now when I talk to people, the one thing they say to me, I cannot believe you was at Newcastle for 2 years.